Good morning, Stoney fam. Welcome back to another episode. I'm going to start this off by embarrassingly admitting that I got way too baggy yesterday, forgot what day it was, and did not upload anything. So, we're off to a great start with our 2 days a week of uploading, right, guys? I've told you all I'm going to start posting every Tuesday and Thursday. So, pretend this is Thursday that this has been uploaded and not Friday. So I'm going to use one of the days of the week to talk about cannabis facts or certain topics revolving around cannabis. And then the other day of the week, I want to talk more about like personal stuff and more about my life and kind of just update on what I want to share with you guys. On some positive news, Max is doing much better since his diagnosis and since with his new medications and diet plan that we've been enforcing, he's been doing really good. And I've been really grateful to be able to spend more time with him and have more space to spend with him, because for the last year I had a very limited space between both of us, and it was very difficult to get a lot of things done and just to move around as a human being. So a lot of things have been changing, some positive, some negative, but for the most part a lot of good things have been coming into my life lately, and I've been pretty grateful for those things. And while I've been working from home and taking care of the dog, my boyfriend has gotten a new position, a new job that he started last month. And I'm very proud of him. He's working in the industry that I've been in for several years. I've taken a step back from working in the cannabis industry. I'm not sure when I'll return, if I'll return, but for now I get to live vicariously through him. He goes and he works right now at a dispensary around us, and he's very happy with where he works and likes the people he works for, people he works with, and I'm very proud of him. So that has been really helpful. Also financially has been helpful as well. So we've been doing pretty good with that stuff. And I love hearing the stories. He'll come home and tell me about, like, how many pounds of weed he worked with today, or what tools he was working with, or what part of the facility he was going to be located in, if he was going to be driving and doing deliveries for the day, or if he was going to be working in the lab. So it's been pretty interesting hearing about that. I only worked in one part of the industry. I was part of the retail side. I did work a little bit in packaging, I think, briefly for like a day or so. And then I've also done, like, customer service work, but majority of everything I did in the industry was on the retail side. I also worked on making logos and designs and stuff like that, but again, was not like anything near that type of realm. I feel like it's very different, like the lab and, like, delivering those processes. They're all different, and the regulations are very wonky. It's a lot of stuff to read and learn about, but I think it's quite interesting and really cool and fun, and it pays pretty well. So if that's something you're interested in, I would look into trying to see if there's some place around you that you could work at and find a way into the industry. I will say I've always said that when it comes to my experience in the industry, just to be wary of who you trust and to just keep your head above your shoulders, and just try to just go in and look at it as a job and work opportunity, and don't take things too personally. It is business. I had made the mistakes of befriending certain people that were not my friend, and you don't want to make those mistakes. Sure, there are really nice people that you can befriend, but I would just make sure to stay remembering that it is a job first. But on the other side of that, I have made some really, really good friends. Like, I'm still friends with one of my old coworkers at my first job I ever worked at a dispensary. We both worked there. We both don't work there anymore, and we're still friends. So, you can always make a lifelong friend out of that too. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be just a job, and it's somewhere you're going to be spending a lot of your time, so it makes sense to be making friends where you work. I get that. But I have this thing where I take things way too personally, and sometimes you got to accept that certain people just won't like you. And I've had that issue with my life where I'm like, well, I don't want them not to like me. I want to understand. I want to make them like me. But you can't make everybody like you, and it's their loss if they don't want to like you. I'm sure you're a great person. AKA me. I'm sure I'm a great person, but if they don't like me, fuck them, That's just kind of what we gotta tell ourselves. We're not gonna be liked and loved by everybody. We're gonna be a villain in somebody's story, regardless. We could be like Mother Teresa, but there's gonna be that one person that just doesn't think that we're like that. So as long as you just stay true to yourself and what you believe and what your morals are, fuck everybody else. The beginning of this month was also my birthday, about like 9 days ago. Thank you, everybody that said happy birthday to me. I still can't believe that I'm halfway almost through my 20s. I don't even want to think about that anymore. I'm going to let that go in a second, because it's mind-boggling to me. I still feel like time has just gone by so fast. It just didn't make sense. As a kid, you're like, ugh, I don't want to hear this. But when you're older, you're like, yeah, you guys were right. It does go by fast, and I don't want to be an adult. Please, can I go back? The only good positive thing about being an adult is I get to smoke weed. I think that if I was a child smoking weed again, that would be pretty bad. Well, I mean, I was like a teenager. I wouldn't say a child, but I guess technically I was a child. I don't know. Any younger than like 16, I feel like it's a bad idea. Don't do it. I had a friend that started smoking in 5th grade, and she asked me to do it a couple times, and I said no. I was way too anxious and scared back then, and I was like, ooh, drugs. I'm glad I said no, because 5th grade is too young to start that. But yeah, I mean, as good as cannabis can be for you, it can be pretty bad if you're, young, that young, when you're just starting to develop your brain cells and everything else. You don't really want to be consuming cannabis. I would say wait a little bit longer, but that's just me. Even myself, I think I started a little bit too young. I was about 14 or 15 years old. I started consuming every day around like 15 to 16. That's when I started like heavily consuming. But I think I wish I'd waited a little bit older until I was like about 18. My sister didn't start consuming until she was older. She's 19 now. So I wish I had waited. But I think I also got a lot of the fun out of my system, because there's a lot of things that I did when I was younger that I would never do now. And I do see people like my age like partying now, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I already got it out of my system. So I have a very interesting story I want to share with you guys. Now it's been quite enough time that I can think back and laugh about this. But at the time, it was pretty traumatizing. So just bear that in mind while I'm sharing this. So my first apartment I'd ever gotten on my own, like a legitimate apartment, was in Salem, Massachusetts. And it was with one of my friends at the time, who I thought was a friend of mine. He had also... Sorry, I paused because I just looked out the window and this ginormously beautiful blue jay just landed in a tree next to me. That's cool. Totally took away my concentration. Anyway, so I met this person at my old job, and he was a customer of mine, and I was a bartender at the time. He was like a family friend. My family had known of him, so I thought, I was like, he's probably fine. Red flag, like from the beginning, probably should never move in with a dude if you were a woman. Probably not a good idea. Just putting that out there. I had no idea he was interested in me in any way other than my friend. So that was my mistake as well. And anyway, there's that context. So I move in, and from jump, it was very a creepy experience. I had also been under the influence of my pain medication, because at the time I had just had my wisdom teeth taken out. So I was on heavy oxys and smoking lots of weed, just like doing dumb shit, and being fed like tequila and like being fed things. To keep me, like, kind of zombified. I really couldn't communicate. I was just, like, there and plopped around wherever. And after having some scary experiences there, I wanted the fuck out. I did not want to live with this dude. I did not want to live in this apartment. I was trying to find any way to get out of this lease. Which, mind you, I had signed the lease a few days prior. So it had been less than a week that I'd even lived here. And I had signed my lease, the wrong name. Like, every signature, the name was wrong. And I remember being fucked up and laughing about it, because I had signed my mom's name instead of mine. And I was like, oh, my name's not Dan, because I was starting to write Danielle instead of my real name. And I was in slippers and my full-on robe. Like, I was in pajamas. And the landlord thought it was acceptable to take a lease signature in this state of mind. I don't know. So that's how the lease even happened. I'm trying to get out of it. And... I'm just trying to get my stuff out of the apartment first before I can even get my name off of this lease. So I'm still attached to this apartment. And I had let my roommate know, like, I'm not going to be staying here. Like, no, we're not living together. And there's other things I'm not going to get into on here. It's just triggering for me, but that's where I'm going to leave it at that. I wanted out of that apartment. I'd been spending a couple days at my other friend's, who's now my boyfriend. I was staying at his apartment with him and his roommate until we had figured this out, because I needed to get my things and I needed to get off of this lease. Like, I could not stay at this apartment. This guy was fucking strange and tried to do some really scary things and did some really creepy things, so I was not staying in this house with him no more. And throughout the remainder of the next couple days, I kept getting fucking weird text messages from my roommate at the time, like saying, like, to come back and just weird shit to me. And then his friend was texting me, telling me to come back to the apartment. It was making me very uncomfortable. And so the following day, I did come back to the apartment, but I came back with police officers, and I came back with my friend, who at the time now was my friend and who was my boyfriend now. So I came with Chris. And we're parked outside, and the dude had broken into my apartment with his friends. They were inside of my apartment. And my bedroom, well, before I'd gotten everything out of it, there was still a bed in there, and I had my door locked. I bought a lock, and I locked it. When we come back into the apartment with the officer, the doors, I'm sorry, I didn't go in with the officer. My boyfriend did. I was too scared. I stayed in the car. He went inside with the officer. They went and saw the apartment, and because I went in afterward when everybody was gone, because I wanted to see what happened. But my room was broken into. They had bought a new lock and put it on the door, so they were going to, they had barricaded inside of my room. Taken over my bed. There was crack, all kinds of drugs on my bed. Thank God I took all my clothes, because they had moved in all their clothes. They had moved into my bedroom. They literally moved into my apartment. And when the police were there telling this dude to leave and asking them questions, his friend jumped out of my 3rd-story window. So the window to my apartment was 3 stories up. This man jumped from the 3rd-story window, splatted his fucking feet, broke all of his toes. He's just screaming, and I could hear it from the car. And my boyfriend, can see this happening too. And the police, come around to the side because, they're there. And the ambulance comes. They call an ambulance. And tell me how the cops, and 3 cops and a couple ambulance people were just standing in a circle around this guy, pretty much laughing at him. And they're trying to find out what drugs he's on. They did not care whatsoever that this dude just fucking hurt himself. They kind of just thought it was hilarious. And I'm, scared as fuck, to be honest. Now that I'm laughing about it, it's funny. But when you think in that moment, I was scared. There was a fucking grown-ass man in my house with his wife and then some other dude just in my apartment, in my fucking bed. That's so creepy. So fucking weird. So after all of that, the police reports, and the fact that I talked to my landlord, and I was like, look, I was under the influence signing this shit. If you want to go to court, we can go to court. I want out of this lease. He finally hooked me off a lease and gave me my money back. It was a crazy situation. It was really crazy situation, and I'm not even fully divulging into certain things because it's a little bit triggering, and certain things are not as funny as I made it sound. It really was a scary time. But it is kind of funny to think about that I had a crackhead jump out of my 3rd-story window and break his feet. And actually, fun fact, that was one of my popular TikToks on my first TikTok account. My first TikTok to have, over 5,000 views was me talking about this. And I have the video of the guy. I do still have the video somewhere of when he fell off my window. You could see him on the ground. It was fucked. You couldn't see his feet, really, but you could hear him, he was not having a good time, I'm sure. And even weirder, I found out that the guy who jumped out of my window, his name is Matt Natty. He is friends with my abusive stepfather and has been friends with him since high school. I found that to be really freaking odd. Such an odd coincidence. What in the hell? Weird, right? But anyway, that happened about 2 or something years ago. And that was my first ever apartment. Very weird experience. So in the future, never move in with somebody you don't know that well. Definitely don't move in with the opposite sex unless you feel safe and you know them well enough to move in with that person. And yeah, always lock your shit. And if your friend tells you should get your stuff out of this creepy house, get your shit out of that creepy house. I owe so much thanks to my friend at the time who saved me from keeping my things there, because I honestly didn't think anything of it. I was like, I have a lock. Nobody's going to break in. And if they do, they're going to get in trouble. They did not fucking care. They did break through that lock. And they didn't care that they got in trouble at all. They were on crack. So don't do crack. That's basically another rule that you can take from this is don't do crack and don't leave your room unattended for crackheads to break into. Yeah. A lot of crack and none of that's going to be smoked. We're going to be smoking some weed. No crack. Wow. All right, guys, I'm going to end this with a bong pack, and I hope that everyone has a lovely rest of their day, and I will stick to the schedule this coming week. Cheers.